Hello, everyone. This is Professor Stanley with the Louisiana State University at Alexandria Department of Behavioral and Social Sciences. This is POLI 4012, and this is our discussion on Chapter 1, Aging Today. I hope that everyone is finding their way through the course and you are enjoying the material that you've been reading and your discussions that you've been completing. Today, I'm going to talk about Chapter 1 for a little bit, Aging Today. Uh, I will try to give you all the main ideas of this chapter and move forward in this series of what I like to call mini lectures. Normally, I try to keep the lectures under an hour for a number of different reasons. One is because the average attention span is only 20 minutes, but it is a sort of a virtual distance learning setting, so I don't want you to feel like uh, I'm going on too long or I'm too long-winded, but I'd also need you to get the main points as well. So, uh, Aging Today, I hope everyone has the correct textbook. Mark Novak is the author. The edition is the third. Some of the points that the author brings up is why study aging, and you can see some of the reasons there for you. Mainly, what you need to take away from this course is that aging is no longer something that is institutionalized or just in a nursing home. Okay, so you see on the bottom there more community-based healthcare. We have more at-home and community-based programs and different types of ways to access care by older adults. And it is becoming a social issue that we're going to talk about a little bit more later in this brief lecture and throughout the course. Um, Obviously, the aging population will bring changes in social institutions. Okay, so those are just some things to consider there. Obviously, the older the larger number of older people that we have in society, the more resources that are going to be required to take care of those people, i.e., tax dollars and other public and private resources that are geared toward the actual care of that population. So that's really what this course is all about, giving you an idea of aging as a current social issue. We're going to talk more about that as well. And also, we're going to discuss how there are stereotypes in society and how a lot of older people are actually breaking those stereotypes. And again, we're going to save some of that discussion for later. Okay, so what I need you to know about ageism is that it is an idea. Obviously, it's a concept. Reflects a deep-seated uneasiness by the young and middle-aged. People often fear the aging process. So growing old is something that's looked negatively on in society, and for a lot of different reasons. And obviously, you see some of them listed there, but everyone has their own reasons. And we know that as you get older, generally you do experience you're more susceptible to illness and different types of chronic conditions, and as a biological precursor, or you know, there's no really other way around it other than, as you get older, your system starts to become more susceptible to disease and illness. That's pretty much the best way I can put it. and disability as well. And also, obviously, everyone at the bottom, you see the word death, sort of has a negative connotation to that word as well, depending on a lot of different things, such as maybe your religious beliefs or um, things like that. But anyway, so ageism is a concept you want to remember. Uneasiness about the aging process by the younger people and the middle aged. Now, if you look at the table here, you see some statistics. Just to point out a few things, differences in the statistics between 1974 and 2000. So you see the different issues: health, fear of crime, not having enough money to live on, and loneliness. Overall, generally, you can see that those problems have actually started to decrease. And the reasoning behind that and the rationale behind that is because people are becoming more aware of aging as a social issue in the United States. Okay, that impacts not only the people that are in the aging population, but also the younger and middle-aged people. So not only is it an issue with budget and with taxpayer dollars and public finance and things of that nature, but it is an issue with private citizens because they're learning more about the process and understanding that actually the more you learn and the more you realize things about aging, it's not really that bad of a process, or ageism really isn't that negative. And so there has been a lot of improvement, you could say, from the period that you see here listed in the book. But however, there is a lot of room that is still available for the study and the research of this population. And that's sort of what the caveat is to my degree. My doctoral degree is the hyperaging population, and we'll talk about that later. Uh, so, culture as a source of ageism. There are some things that the author puts in the book that, sort of they're comical and created by culture, really created by the society we live in. Some common things you hear: everything hurts. What doesn't hurt doesn't work. So, you know, the author's trying to make light of the situation here by showing you how society, in general, I would say in the past, looked at the process of aging. So those are just some examples there. You can take a look at those. I'm not going to go over all of those because, again, they're just jokes. Um, what we will talk about here is, a lot of negative images we've seen about aging as in the learning process or in the socialization process, in books, in art, things of that nature, in textbooks. And not a whole lot of research has went into the actual process itself of ageism. So people are generally less attentive to the needs of older people, uh, if that makes sense, to put it in layman's terms. And the service sector does not pick up on the needs of older people as quickly as they should. And as you see at the end, the last point there, service sector is slower or less attentive to older people, and the reason why is that there are all these negative connotations that surround the process of ageism. So just something you want to keep in mind there as you're reading along and following along in the book. Okay, what about the media? We've heard a lot about the media lately, especially in the last presidential election. The media is a very powerful source of information. Uh, that's what I will tell you from the academic standpoint. Now, I will withhold my personal beliefs about the media and let you draw your own conclusions. But what I will tell you, in terms of our study here of the aging population, older adults are underrepresented in the media. Okay? So a lot of times, and again, just to back up a little bit, this stuff is changing very rapidly. You do see a lot of older adults now in commercials and in television shows or in any type of advertisement, whatever the case may be. So there have been improvements made, but for the most part, the population is still underrepresented. So the media does not really help about, uh, you know, help in the process of improving. Elder speak, that's just sort of like, I really don't know why the authors included this information here, but baby talk to older people, like dearie, cutie, sweetie, those types of things. And a lot of caregivers do this in practice in their service delivery. Um, however, that's not really deemed acceptable because unless an individual may have some sort of documented illness or something and an ability to communicate. But it's never okay to base your opinions on stereotypes. And that's another thing we're going to talk about is stereotypes in this class. So it's not safe to assume that just because someone is older, they do not have the mental capability that a younger person, a person younger than them may have, or any other person for that reason. So I'm gonna teach you how to eliminate the stereotypes. That's what we're doing is breaking the stereotypes here. So let's do a facts on aging quiz, true or false. Over 20% of the U.S. population is now age 65 and over. Well, if you had been paying attention, you would know that that is false. The correct number today, as of 2017, is actually more around 14.5%. The textbook was published in 2012. So again, the statistics may be a little bit lagging, but the ideas are the same. Older people have incomes below the poverty level defined by the federal government. False. In 2007, 9.7% had incomes below the poverty level, has dropped since the 1960s. Okay, so those are just some stereotypes that, remember, aren't always necessarily true. At least 10% of the aged are living in long stay institutions, such as nursing homes. That is false. Actually, about 5%, maybe even less than that today. I don't have the actual number right offhand to give you. But remember, uh, elder care is now considered to be shifting toward home and community-based settings. So remember, the institutions are sort of losing their power. They're fading a little bit. Okay, so another question. Life expectancy of African Americans at age 75 is about the same as that of whites. That is true. Right? Lower life expectancy at birth, but if they survive hardships of childhood and live to 75, life expectancy is the same as age for whites. Age of life expectancy for Caucasian Americans, uh, which would probably be a better way of saying that. Now, you can see that there are some stereotypes that we need to overcome. The aged have higher rates of criminal victimization than persons under age 65. That is false. The lowest rates of criminalization fall the same across all categories. All right, so You can see, and again, going back to the table that we looked at earlier, you can see that the issues that people fear aren't necessarily an issue with the data and the statistics that were given here. Crime rates overall have dropped since the 70s for a number of different reasons. Okay, so there's still some issues that remain. Larceny and fraud, those are some things that are going to continue. Fraud, you know, a lot of people, a lot of con artists do try to make contact with older people and get their money that they have stashed away, basically. Because, anyone can call a person and pretend to be a business. And if that person does not do the research and, go to the Secretary of State website to see if they're an actual entity and where they're located. And again, guys, if a business does not have a physical address, they only have a P.O. box listed, you need to be very, very leery of who they are and what it is that they're doing. Okay. So, unfortunately, a lot of these people do target the elderly uh, because they think that they can fraud them out of their money, and they have more savings and more assets that they can obtain from them by fraud. Victimization. So, making yourself the victim, lowering your self image. And a lot of older adults experience this, and you, as a future administrator or caregiver, need to be aware of this. Lower self image, feelings of inferiority, loss of self esteem, independence, and institutionalization. Ageism in the workplace. You know, to make a very long story short, employers are now having to find more creative ways to employ people and retain people that may be above the average age person working in that particular workplace. So, any type of resources or programs available out there to support this is a great idea, especially if you're going into administration and you're going to be dealing with this on a daily basis. So, not only do these people want to be cared for and have their medical and their health needs taken care of, they also want to maintain their independence and hold a job. Okay. But unfortunately, a lot of these individuals victimize themselves. So you need to be aware of that. Estimated personal violent victimization rates. You can see the numbers here. Actually, the older the people get, in this example, remember, we try to generalize as much as we can, but we can't always do that. We can just use the data that we're given. In this example here, you see that the numbers actually drop depending on the category of the crime as the age increases. So we have what's known as um, a positive correlation. Excuse me, we have a negative correlation. So as age increases, uh, overall percentage of crimes that are committed on those age groups decrease. And you can see that in the table here, and it's also in your book as well. So remember, there is a disconnect between, how the media portrays people, how the older adults actually portray or have a self-image about themselves, and what the statistics say. Okay, so what about fear of crime? 36% of older people felt fear of crime was very or somewhat serious. Obviously, it depends on your demographics, the geographical area. Greater fear reported in urban high crime areas. Crime may involve personal injury, and theft obviously affects the ability to pay bills. So, fear of crime is one of the biggest concerns that you see here. Now, the responses to ageism, after people get into the older days and do whatever it is that they did in life, um, almost half of them say that those were the best years. Okay. Um, Another theory here, the ageless self, another form of ageism. There are a lot of self, you know, perceptions that individuals can have to improve their overall well-being, and in an attempt to defeat all the negative connotations that go along with ageism. Uh, okay, so another statistic here. Most two-thirds roughly would be happier to live another 10 years than they would to check out today. So people would actually want to live longer. And the outlook increases as you get older. So 68% say things were better than they ever thought they would be. Right? So you can see here some of the differences between what's actually occurring in with the statistics and what people think or what their self-perceptions are. So I need you to make note of that difference, and I need you to recognize that. So those are a few things you just want to keep in mind. Now, responses to ageism, how do we improve? How do we go forward? Well, there are a number of different ways we can do that. Let's talk about some of them. The media has improved, as we said earlier, in the way they portray the aging population. Also, the different examples you see there, children's storybooks, print and television media, portrayals of older people in intimate relationships, different types of examples there. Um, the mass media presenting more varied images of aging. So, it's not just looked at as just this thing that's far out and that's never going to happen, you know, because of the amount of people that are above age 65. Uh, you know, like we said earlier, that population is growing. So naturally, excuse me, my presentation went a little haywire there. Let's go forward a little bit. So naturally, you're going to see the media presenting more varied images because there is more, excuse me, of the number of people, more people in this population, to make a very long story short. And some examples are AARP magazine and After 50 magazine. Those are just some media examples. Now, for you business-minded people out there, um, you would obviously recognize the fact that there's a larger segment of customers or consumers in the marketplace that are older. And statistics say that this is the richest older generation in history. Okay? They have almost half of all the discretionary income. And remember, from economics, there's a difference between discretionary and disposable income. Okay? So, they are a little bit more wealthier, is what the author is saying here. Nearly half of all credit cards in the USA, obviously, the older you get, the more capable you are of obtaining credit and using credit. Okay, so no big surprise there. Now, if you're a business-minded person, you understand that you have to start including different ways to market and attract older customers. Okay, so the old negative connotations or stereotypes no longer apply today because of the different type of population that we're living in, containing more older people, obviously. And there are a number of different reasons for that, um, economic, social, political, things that we're going to talk about in this course. So remember, don't be overwhelmed just within this lecture here. I'm simply introducing you to some of the concepts that you're going to see and some of the themes that are going to emerge as we go throughout the book. Okay, older consumer motivation. People felt stronger negative associations about age than race or gender. Older adults had just as strong an age bias as younger people. Some older adults try to distance themselves from being old. Okay, so it's just some examples of motivations of the older consumer. The author gives you those. Okay, what about diversity in the marketplace? Well, not only as consumers uh, do older people impact the demand side, but they also impact the supply side of labor, for example. So, as we were saying earlier, a lot of people are maintaining their position in the workforce after age 65 for a number of reasons, largely economic. To be honest, with the price levels and the things that we see here in this country that continue to rise, inflation, things of that nature. But that's a different subject. So, how do people market? How do businesses market to these people? Well, there's a few examples here. They portray them as the individualist, someone who's a lone fighter or a loner, uh, a warrior, etc. And you'll see that even the author includes some examples that aren't necessarily true. So you need to always question the material that you read and the information that you consume as a student, and also as you go along and you learn more and you read more, be wary of the things that you're taking in because obviously everyone has an axe to grind. So publishers and textbook authors like to go with the flow, and a lot of times they'll put things in books that maybe one-sided per se. I'm not making one case or the other. I'm just saying that just remember to look at things and take them for what it's worth, but also in some instances you need to look a little deeper. Okay, another form of ageism. We see, the media gets involved here in Hollywood and all these different forces that portray an image that may not be necessarily true. And, you know, Hollywood does a great job of doing this. And you see that in the first example there. They completely disregard any type of process that you would have to incur within the aging process itself, such as disabilities and physical aging. And they do what Hollywood does best and set an unrealistic example of aging. Okay, and then you see a lot of celebrities and different types of people, role models, if you will, receiving cosmetic surgery, continuing to party and act like they're still in their 20s and early 30s. And they're also concerned about longevity. So the whole idea of the American way of thinking is you want to have it all, and the irony is you cannot have it all. You can only have as much as you're able to handle. So unfortunately, not everyone can be put on the same playing field in terms of what they can do and what they can't do to keep up with this image. Um, so you'll see a lot of people trying to stay up with trends or fads or fashions in the attempt to keep up with this portrayal that isn't necessarily true and for our intents and purposes here. Now, other types of different advertising you'll see, especially on the television, maybe locally there, on your TV when you see an advertisement for a community living home, there are a lot of pictures of people having fun and playing games and socializing, things of that nature. Sort of like this problem-free lifestyle is what the book describes it as. Again, each case is going to be different. So that may very well be the case that there are people there that are experiencing this lifestyle. But you also need to keep in mind that there are dozens of other patients that may be bedridden or maybe experiencing a lower quality of life, and you have to keep that in mind as well when you see all these images and these things. So, as a potential administrator or whatever form of fashion you're going into in the healthcare industry, even as a caregiver or any type of allied health professional, the expectations need to be realistic, and you'll experience this as you do your clinical hours or whatever it is, your externship, if you're going for elder care administration. So, things I want you to take away from this discussion here in this slide, that there is sort of a disconnect between what is the reality and what is the perception of reality. So remember that those things are something that you need to consider as well. Okay. Critique of the ageless self. Mind-body split rejects the aging body. Should have frankness about decline and loss of capacity. Okay. Well, basically what we see here is when a person is critiquing themselves, okay, and saying that, mind over body, um, I can do things that my body, in my mind, I can do things that I want to do, and it doesn't matter what my body says, okay? And that's what the mindset of these people are. And, it's not always the case, as we were just discussing earlier. And also the second point, frankness about decline and loss of capacity, just basically not dismissing the fact that it is happening. You are losing functionality and the ability to perform the activities of daily living that that all people have to do in order to maintain a healthy lifestyle. Okay, examples of change. Women have rejected the idea of extreme thinness. Uh, so this is a positive thing to take away here. The idea of the media portraying women as, having a Coke bottle figure, if you will, or, the right shapes in all the right places, however you want to say it. This is changing, and not only in uh, the aging group, but other segments of society as well. You'll recall seeing the different types of dolls that young girls in this country are used to playing with. They were used to playing with the perfect Barbie doll that had no problems, and again, back to that perception. And now they're making dolls that are more realistic. So that's just an example that outside of the aging context we're discussing here, but it's applicable because this whole idea people have caught on to is it's not realistic. And companies targeting older women, uh, the reason why they do this is because, frankly, it's a large market segment. Women outlive men, and that's just the way it goes. And companies have caught on to this, and they're using this to their advantage. So they're spending more money on marketing and advertising and reaching this target market that contains women that are older. Okay, so education programs, things here in this country that need to be addressed. And again, the U.S. has not experienced hyperaging or has reached a hyperage state with 20% or more of the population over age 65, um, such as Japan has done. So they have not studied a lot and did a lot of research on things like health related quality of life, um, activities of daily living, etc., in the oldest of old populations because they haven't happened yet. So all we can do is really speculate and take the data that we receive from the oldest states and try to compare and do surveys and make contrast and things of that nature. School curriculum neglects later life, so there is not a lot of learning that goes on with regard to the experiences an individual has based on their later life stages. Social work and medical schools offer some but not enough training. This is true. Gerontology has largely been neglected up until the last 20 years or so. So you can see that the subject and the discipline that you're in today and the things that we're talking about today were not emphasized as much in the last couple of decades. So this program, this course that you're in right now, I actually developed myself. There was no template, there were no resources because it's a very new subject, and the reasons why it's relevant, number one, to to speak to the education part of it, to educate you as students about the issues, social issues, and things that you run into in later life as a professional, but you also learn personally how this process works. And then also from the business standpoint, if you all are seeking to get to administrative positions, whatever it is, whether it's institutional care, nursing homes, or home and community-based programs, you figure out the science and you learn about the science behind the aging process and how things work here in this class. So, as an allied health professional, you are in the middle of all these things, and you're in the middle of the social workers and the case managers, and you have the medical side of it too. So when you're a program administrator, you have to balance a lot of different things. And I just want you to know that as you prepare to go into your new careers, that you will have to. This is a balancing act for the most part. You know, you have a lot of different forces, stakeholders that are going to be demanding your attention, and you have to give them that attention because they're obviously paying you, number one, if it's the company or the organization, and then you have the employees, and then you have the patients or the recipients if it's a Medicaid program or whatever the case is. So it's important to know these things, and it kind of leads into the next point about direct care workers, personal care aides, medical assistants, whatever the case is, don't know a lot about the aging process. And frankly, they do not have the proper training or the educational background to administer care on their own, which is why you need the direct supervision or you need someone with the administrative capacities to oversee these people, which is the premise of this course, if you've caught on to that by now. So those are some things you just need to keep in mind there. And it's important to create as an administrator or whatever your title is, a leader. It's important to create things like a workshop, a quarterly workshop, or a biannually workshop, twice a year, you know, once a year, just something to keep everyone abreast of the changes and the things that are happening in the healthcare world, specifically relating to older adults and older Americans. Okay, so I can present you with all the facts in the world and all the numbers and all the data in the world, but the where the rubber meets the road, so to speak, comes with the people themselves and not just the data. So people have to understand that they are the ones that are capable of changing stereotypes, and they are the ones that are responsible for moving this aging agenda forward in terms of educating people about the process, young and old. So this means that you have to balance your learning between people that are in great health and advanced in age, and also people that are in not so good health and are advanced in age. And that's the first point that the author is speaking to there. You can't only seek the ill people or the institutionalized people because they won't help you develop a positive image. If you see bedridden people and you see people that are in pain all the time, when you're doing your research or even reading about it, then it's not going to improve your image of the way aging works and the way becoming old works. Um, it is a process. It's a wonderful process, and not everyone is ill or institutionalized. So it's important to seek those people that are in great health and get ask them. This is where the learning occurs. It's you talk to people, you ask them, hey, well, what's your routine? What do you like to do? Your favorite food? What do you like to eat? And this gives you more knowledge about maybe what's their secret or what helps them improve their quality of life. So again, you want to always seek out a balance and find uh, you know Aristotle called it the golden mean. So you want to find the middle ground between successful aging and wellness on one side and chronic illness and conditions on the other. So that's something you need to take away right there. Intergenerational programs basically educate people on how to get along with each other and how to socialize and learn from each other and gather information from each other and work together in society. So intergenerational, that word has come about again in the last couple of decades because researchers and institutions are looking for ways to find out how do we integrate this large amount of elderly population into a normal population pool that has been mostly comprised of younger adults up until this point in time. So that's just an example that I wanted to go over with you all there. Now, legislation and social action, just some of the laws that have been passed to prevent discrimination of the elderly or the older population through legislation. The Age Discrimination in Employment Act basically says that employers cannot discriminate based on the appearance or perception of someone's age or the age on their application as well. The Age Discrimination Act made it federal law for commercial buildings and property to maintain signs and to note markings in the parking lot and also entering the building for handicapped people and disabled persons that were unable to physically walk into the building and had to have the assistance of a mobile device such as a wheelchair. Okay, and again, the aim here, the balance is between the ideal and the reality. Obviously, the laws have not eliminated all discrimination, but they have done some good to defer discrimination. But the irony again goes back to the fact that people are the ones that change the process. So a lot of middle-aged and older workers still will face discrimination at work, and this is again something that you need to be aware of, especially maybe if you do go on to own a business and you have older employees and younger employees and everyone else in between. So this is something that you need to keep in mind as well. All right, so some things to take away from the discussion today. Judge people by who they are and what they can do. This is very common sense to me. People that are more capable obviously deserve to be held in a different regard versus people that are more or maybe less capable of doing whatever it is that they need to do to accomplish their goals. And I mean something outside of disability. I mean work ethic and merit. So I'm emphasizing a merit-based system here. Also, everyone is aging, not just people that are old, everyone you know, including yourself. So again, learning about these processes not only help you become a better student, become a better future leader or an owner or a manager, an administrator, they also help you understand where you are in life and some of the issues that you may be facing as you get older. And you can take that information and use it to improve the conditions. That's what your purpose is to graduate, not only get your degree and get a job that you want, but also it's to educate others and to inform others and to empower others about these things and dynamics that are occurring every day. So that's it for today. I hope that you have enjoyed our discussion. And as always, if you have any questions or comments, please contact me. Thank you all. Have a wonderful day.